Welcome back, Troglodytes, to another episode of the Trogly's Guitar Show. Merry Christmas! This is the perfect Christmas guitar. The Ferrari Red with nice crisp white binding. Now, there was a point in time where anything made after 1979, I said it wasn't a good guitar. Flash forward about 4 years later, and I am all about the 80s Gibsons because they did a lot of interesting things. Some of those interesting guitars are prehistoric reissues, and then there's the custom colors that they were trying out at this point in time. These are finishes such as this guy is Ferrari Red. He's in really good shape, but he does have some wear and tear that we need to go over today. However, finding a Ferrari Red in good shape has proven to be a very difficult task. First, you've got to find one of these. Second, you have to make sure it wasn't routed for a Kaler. And then third, it has to be in decent shape. So finding one of these custom colored Les Paul Customs that's in awesome shape is very difficult for collectors nowadays. Now, this one is by no means perfect, but I couldn't have found it at a better time because this is like the Santa guitar. It's got that nice, beautiful, very, very red color. It differs from wine red because it's not a see-through finish. It's solid, and it's kind of like fire truck red if you've never seen a Ferrari, but it is a very red guitar. Now, I do have an SG in the same finish, but I've got to say, it's the white binding on these that really sells this Ferrari Red finish. 1985 is actually the last Norlin year. That's when Gibson was purchased by its current owner. But a lot of people consider until about 87 to be the end of the Norlin era. However, the specs are different from a late 70s, early 80s custom, because you still have your maple top, your mahogany back, but you have the return of the mahogany neck. That happened sometime, around 83, 84, that they switched back from the maple. So this is kind of your standard Gibson Les Paul Custom. I believe it does have the Swiss cheese weight relief, but you couldn't really tell it. It also has your standard ebony fretboard. These mid to late 80s Gibson Les Paul Customs are just about every bit as good as like the late 70s, early 80s. But they're more for people who want a semi-vintage sounding year. When it's in the 80s, it still kind of sounds cool yet, rather than a 90s. However, they have all of the traditional appointments that most people are looking for. Because when you're buying online and you hear a guitar has a maple neck when you're used to playing mahogany your whole life, I get it. I see why some people shy away from them. But let me tell you, maple necks are just as awesome, if not even better. But if you're looking for a traditional spec Gibson Les Paul Custom that kind of has that slightly vintage sound to the title, these are definitely worth checking out. And if you can get a custom colored one, these things are sure to continue to raise in value because there wasn't very many of these made. I mean, they weren't custom ordered or anything, but they are hard to find, especially in good shape. Now, I believe it's around 1983 when they start doing weight relief. But as you can see, they're still heavy guitars at 10 pounds, 9.8 ounces. And this one has more of a 60s neck profile. So now that we've learned a little bit about mid-80s customs, as well as custom colors, let's go ahead and hear how this one sounds with its Tim Shaw PAFs. Our clean tones come from a Gibson Super Gold Tone GA30 RV. Our dirty tones come from a Marshall JMP 1C. Now that we know how this guitar sounds, let's go ahead and go over its condition. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the condition of this guitar. We'll start with the headstock. This guitar is by no means mint condition. As you can see, there's quite a few scratches on the face of the headstock, just from regular string changes. And a lot of these marks that you're seeing are also polishing marks. But once you start really looking at it in the light, there's a lot of light imperfections. The truss rod does work a little stiff, as most of these are, because I don't think it's really been used that much. This one still has the original nut. There are a few light little finish checks stemming from it, which are very common, but this guitar has not been broken. The ebony fretboard and frets were just cleaned and oiled, so they're good to go. And there's only one really small thing to go over here on the fretboard. On the second fret here, there is just a very tiny little bit of divoting into the fretboard from somebody's long nails. I mean, you can't really even see it, but it is there under close inspection. Like if you run your finger along it, you can kind of feel it. But as far as playing, you would never know it. The neck profile on this one is definitely more of a 60s. It's got a little bit more to it, but not quite a medium profile yet. Face of the guitar here, as you can see, it looks pretty good from far away. And once we get it up close in the light, you're going to see a lot of scratches. Some are a little deeper than others. I mean, a lot of this is just picking wear, but some of it is, scratches into the clear coat. I mean, by no means is it trashed. It's kind of like any black Les Paul custom you would have. Once you get it in the light, you start seeing all those polishing swirls, as well as handling marks. So the finish is very slightly dulled in this area, just from being under somebody's arm like this. But I did polish it up, and it looks pretty good. But you can see that there is wear and tear to the top. I'm sure a professional polish and buff job would do this guitar wonders as well. This guitar, for the most part, is original. I would say it's like 97% original. When I got it, this knob had clearly been changed. It wasn't super obvious. I mean, the color is about the same on all of them, but the print and fit of this knob wasn't very good. So I looked in my parts drawer and I replaced that with another speed knob that looks a little bit more correct. So if I wouldn't have told you, you probably just would have guessed it was original anyways. They must have made knobs differently, kind of, mid-80s, because they don't seem to age as much as like the 70s and early 80 versions. The bridge is original. The tailpiece is original. You have your original pickups yet. They are the Tim Shaws. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the bridge pickup still has an ink stamp on it, but the neck does not. Towards the later run of these Tim Shaw PAFs, they didn't get the ink stamp, so that's very common to see, and it's kind of cool to actually find one dated as an 85. But something that's also interesting is you still have the patent applied for stickers on the pickup rings. Usually those will have fallen off by now, so it's nice to have those yet. I know some people take them off and put them on the bottom side of the pickup so you don't lose them. But overall, I would say a few little scratches in this area, light dulling in the finish there, just polishing marks in general is pretty much the only thing that is on the top. Take a look at the back of the headstock here. This is kind of from the era where they did away with the Schallers and switched to Grovers. So you do have Grover tuners on here. Serial number is 82255512. So this is Nashville made. Now there is a very small ding right here at the very top of the headstock. It's not too bad. I mean, you'll probably never see it. There are quite a few Ferrari Red touch-up pens out there that you could dab that up if you wanted to. I would just leave it as is. It's in good enough shape and it's hidden well enough that you don't have to worry about it. Now there are some scratches here. I actually did those by polishing the guitar because there was a little bit of residue from a different polish. So this is the one time that I did polish it up and then I just made it look worse, I think. When you hit it in the light just right along here, you can see there's a little bit of like a buildup there. Like I don't know if the finish was slightly worn there, but it's not a break as we'll see once we go under black light. But the neck's in good shape. It does have some impressions on it, as you can see starting to form there. They're very minor. I honestly didn't even see them until I started looking at this guitar a little more close. There is kind of a ding right here. I'm not sure if it was touched up or not. It blacklights a little weird under blacklight, but that is there. And also, as you'll see under blacklight, there is a little bit of wear to the outside coat of the paint. However, in normal lighting situations like this, you really don't see it. So it's not necessarily worn through by any means. The back of the guitar is in pretty good shape. You do have some wear and tear though. Again, this finish is just like black. It shows everything. You can see you've got some belt buckle wear impressions there. I call that buckle worming, but nothing that really destroys the finish. You can see here, there's just some minor scuffs. And that's something else I wanted to make mention of. When I got this guitar, there were some white scuffs on it. Luckily, I was able to polish them out, so they weren't actually into the finish. But overall, the back of the guitar is in pretty good shape. Take a quick look at the sides here. Again, you've got some light wear onto the sides. You can see a little bit of buckle worming right there in that cutaway area. There we see it. So this guitar is not mint condition by any means, but it's really clean. And as far as a collector goes, finding one of these in mint condition just might not exist anymore. The ones that are out there are likely a part of a collection already, and this thing's pretty dang clean on its own merits. As I said earlier, a nice professional polish and buff job would probably do this one wonders. Now I do want to point out right here, there's that kind of scuff I was talking about earlier. That will polish off with enough force. So it is there. There's also a small little lacquer chip right there. So now that we've gone over the condition, you're thinking, great. It's just a nice clean player. For the most part original, one replaced knob as I had talked about earlier. But there's one more thing we need to go over here. Somebody kind of messed these strap buttons up. And it's kind of a shame for this one because it's the one thing I have to say, okay, time out, we gotta talk about this. Now, the original buttons are still on this guitar, or at least they were when I'd gotten it. But for whatever reason, somebody wanted like a longer screw, so they replaced the screw part of it. So this strap button here, as you can see, it still moves, it's not completely secure, because the screw somebody put in there, it was a really weird one. It looked like something you would use for drywalling. I'll show you it here, where it has this large top and it's stuck up. You can use pretty much any screwdriver with this guy, but what's wrong with using this is the diameter is a little bit thicker than the stock screws. So you will want to find a replacement screw for this one that sits a little bit more flush in order to properly secure this guitar to your strap. And I will include this one, that way you can take this to your hardware store and find a close match. Believe it or not, that's not the worst one. This bottom strap button was very bad. I don't know what they used. They used what looked like the stock screw, but they had sunk the strap button into the body about, I would say, a 1/4 inch, maybe not even that much. So it took a while to get it out. Like, you could take the screw off, but the button was actually stuck inside the guitar. I played around with it for a little bit and I was able to get it out. And the original strap button is very thin on the bottom part, so that's why it was able to sink in. But I put this Schaller strap lock on it here, and since this bottom part is wider, it actually fits without sinking into the body. So you wouldn't necessarily know something was wrong. But you can see there is a very small finish chip there. You can easily touch that up if you desired. That was there before I had taken the other one out. So that's already a Schaller button. It's secured. I wouldn't worry about that. But if you're looking to restore this to the stock strap buttons, I would suggest taking this somewhere, getting those holes filled in, and then re-drilled properly with the correct type of screws. So it's kind of a minor issue, but you definitely need to know about it. Another minor issue that we'll go over here. There is a very small crack in the switch tip here. It doesn't affect it at all, but it is there. And on the neck pickup ring, right here, this was cracked right there. Now it doesn't affect it once again, but I did super glue it back together so it wasn't as obvious. This pickup ring cracked because somebody screwed the screws down a little bit too tight, and that did slightly bend the original pickup ring. You can see it's a little bit bent up. And the same thing happened with this bottom one. You can see it's a little bit bent outward as well, where somebody was probably tearing this apart to verify the condition of it, and they just, had an automatic screwdriver that sunk it down a little bit too far. So the rings aren't necessarily cracked, like not this one. I mean, this one had a small split there that I glued, but they're not completely flush. We'll take a look under blacklight here. You can see everything's good on the face of the headstock, nothing really to worry about. And the body is looking just as fine as well. You don't really see any major nicks or dings, scratches, or touch-ups. The back of the neck here, you can see it's glowing the way it should. There's no breaks, cracks, repairs, or touch-ups on this guy. And here you can see that light amount of clear coat wear I was talking about. Nothing that you can really see under normal lighting situations, but it is there under black light. Back of the guitar, once again, good shape, just average light wear and tear. Take a look at the sides. Again, you do have that small little chip around there. And a little bit of a scuff there and a small ding in the clear coat. But overall, this guitar passes the black light test. This Ferrari does come with its original Gibson chainsaw case. This is a Generation 3. It's in pretty good shape. All the latches are still functioning, so that's the most important part. And you just have some light scuffs and storage wear. I will say the logo feels like it's been re-glued because it sits a little bit higher than normal, especially down here. You can kind of see some of the glue residue, but at least it's still present. Now I think blue is probably the best interior color for this guitar. It really pops the red and white. But one small issue to note is that the padding here is kind of come unglued, so you'll want to put some glue around there to secure that again. But I do believe this is the original case to this exact guitar. There's no really foul odors to it or anything, and you do have the original strap button as well as an extra Schaller I had, and that one screw we were talking about as far as measuring it to get a proper fitting one if you don't fill in and re-drill. So overall, it's got some light wear. It's got a little bit of buckle indentation on the back and a few light nicks and dings. Once again, kind of on the top of the headstock there. But as far as a Ferrari Red custom goes, this thing's pretty clean. I think it definitely deserves to be in someone's collection or gigged right back out on the road. So thank you, Trogly, for tuning in today. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.